Hey guys, it's SRC Reptiles, and today I'm going to be making a little quick video to kind of tell you guys a little announcement, and also I'm going to be talking about some new and updated things that I do when it comes to Crested Gecko egg care. And let me make sure my phone's not moving around. Jackson's at work today, so there's not going to be any him helping me video, and I also have to work today, so that's why this isn't going to be too terribly long. But I will tell you that I'm going to be going through and erasing all of my old care videos and stuff from the past, and I'm going to be remaking those, and I will be making a list of which ones I've deleted. That way I know what to work on to replace, as well as I have other ideas of things I want to make as well, so there's going to be a whole mixture of stuff. And if you hear a noise in the background, my dad got the little portable air conditioner up and running again, and he also said apparently this specific model is made with a pump in it to pump the water out, so he's not really sure why it got all messed up. He thinks the sensor in it was dirty, so he went and cleaned it, and I haven't had any issues since, but I have been turning it off or just turning it to low fan when I'm not at home, just to make sure that nothing weird happens like it did last time. So anyway, we're going to be doing updated information on how I have my eggs and stuff. Blaze just went and laid 2 eggs yesterday or the day before, I'm not really sure. They were well formed and they weren't soft at all like fresh laid eggs would be. So I'm guesstimating that probably on the 3rd, today is the 5th, probably around the 3rd to the 4th, she probably laid the eggs. They are fertile, so they're currently in the lay box. So I want to get the lay box down, and I will switch the camera around so that you guys can see it. And just kind of show you what I'm doing currently, which is what a lot of breeders do themselves. But I do of course have the container around here somewhere that I started out with, that I can show from what I went to what I'm now currently using, because where I'm going to have hopefully a couple females next year breeding. Blaze is going to be retired. She's going to be, let's see, how old is Blaze this year? She's going to be 7 next year, that's what it was. She's 6 right now. So Blaze, I'm just going to completely retire her. She was last bred in 2017 or 2018, around there, because 2018 is when babies started hatching, so 2017 was probably when she was bred last. I was going to give her a 2-year period to recover calcium and stuff like that, and then I decided that I was going to wait and breed Snickers and Indigo. And then this year I was like, well, I kind of want to breed Blaze again as well to see if I can get some more really neat animals out of her, like what Snickers and Mischief look like, and also Sparks, which was the one that I sold to somebody. And I do regret selling her, but at the same time she went to really great owners. They're really awesome people. And they every so often do update me on how she's doing. I think they're actually the only people that update me on how she's doing, or I'll ask about them, or I'll ask about Sparks, because they do live in my town, so sometimes I'll be like, hey, how's she doing and stuff. So anyway, enough rambling, let's go ahead and get to the eggs. Okay, so this is just a regular old tackle box, and I always have my pencil sitting on top. That's just in case any eggs get laid. I normally will use the pencil to draw a line right over where the embryo is located in the egg, and then I will use the pencil to write the date that it was laid, or the date that I guesstimate it was laid. So this is the container, and I'm planning on taking the eggs that are currently in here and putting them in a little temporary container, emptying out this entire thing and fixing it to where it's rows again. Because I did have it to where it was all in one row. Well, then of course eggs would hatch, and I need to clean out those specific areas before I go putting more eggs in there, because, you know, leftovers from the embryo and stuff. So for now, they're kind of all spread out and wonky, but I do plan on cleaning this today, actually, which I was going to do it before I videoed, but I was like, no, it really doesn't matter. I can just explain why it's all wonky looking. So this doesn't have any holes. It does have a couple areas here where it looks like there would be holes, but there's not. I think it's just kind of some defects with the plastic. So this is the container here, and this helps keep separate when babies hatch. They're not just getting around and moving around and messing with the other eggs. If there is a chance of them messing with eggs, they only mess with their sibling. And of course, when they hatch, I'm keeping an eye out around that day that they're going to be hatching, or around that week, so I can make sure to catch them when they've come out. That way they're not sitting in there for a couple days, because obviously once they hatch, you want to get them into their own container as soon as possible. And then you want to be able to give them a meal either that day or the next day following. You don't want to let them go without food too long. Most of the time, I always hand feed my babies. because I want to make sure they are getting a little bit of food. Most of the time, if you just stick a food dish in there and they're fresh new babies, they're either going to make a huge mess and they're going to step all over in it, and then you've got that to clean off their feet, which is just extremely tricky when they're new. Most of the time, they don't start really sitting still until they're 2 or 3 months old. So having a new baby that's really jumpy and trying to clean food off of its feet that's dry, it's a huge pain in the butt, to say it nicely. So I always will suggest hand feed your geckos. I have little tiny coffee stir straws that I personally use, and if you think this is too long for you, you can always just cut it down a little bit. But I get like 300 of those at Walmart for a couple dollars. So anyway, here is the current eggs. This one here was her oddball one that she just laid one of. And then these are the new ones here, and then these are the ones that are at day 68. So they still got a little ways to go. But I use Hatch Right as my medium, and contrary to what some believe, Hatch Right does dry out after a while. So normally once a week I will open this container up, because it's a good idea to give fresh oxygen, because you want it to be as airtight as possible so it holds in the humidity. You don't want the eggs drying out. If you start to see humidity forming on the top, just open it up, wipe that off with either a paper towel or a dry rag, and then close it back. You want something airtight as possible to hold in humidity, and you don't really want any holes in it. If there are any holes, you can make just a teeny tiny little hole. The only thing is you would literally have to make a small little hole for every little area, because most of these, as you can see, like that blue deal, presses against the top pretty well. So there's not going to be much airflow between the entire container if you put just a hole in one little area. So like I said, once a week I normally will open it up. I'll kind of take the eggs and just lay them in the grooves of my finger and not move them around, while I use my right hand to kind of move my finger through the Hatch Right. And if it feels dry, then I will use my spray bottle and mist the Hatch Right a couple times on the top, and then I will use my finger and I'll kind of dig it around and I'll flip it around and stuff to get it incorporated all the way throughout the entire Hatch Right. And if you're using my old setup, which like I said, I'll show you the container, it has a little rack that it comes with that it's supposed to be for leopard geckos. So if you use the container, you need to put a paper towel under each egg, because otherwise leopard gecko eggs are bigger than crested gecko eggs. So the crested gecko eggs will roll around in there unless you put that paper towel under it to keep it in place. But if it's something that's got a rack, that the rack sits in the Hatch Right, or vermiculite or perlite, whatever you're using, you can just lift that rack up and sit it somewhere, and then you can just spray it down and you're not having to balance eggs in your hand. But being that I have 5 eggs now, like I said, I'm going to dig out that old container so that I can sit the eggs in just a little thin amount of Hatch Right so that they can sit there temporarily, so I can empty out this entire thing and put fresh Hatch Right and have them in a row versus them just kind of being all over the place. So, but I'll go ahead and get out the old container, and I will say real quick, when it comes to incubating crested gecko eggs, how long they're in the egg really depends on the temperature that you have. So for instance, right now in this room, the eggs are at about 73 to 75. That's normally what it goes to, and that's normally what you want them to be at. Any hotter, and they'll normally hatch, I believe it's too soon? What was the thing again? Yes, if you have it too warm, then the egg will hatch sooner than if you have it on the cooler end. Now, of course, some people, I think, probably incubate their eggs at about 70 to 72. That's if you want the baby going all the way into like the late 90s to early hundreds when it comes to days. Mine normally hatch with the temperatures they're kept at around day 95. So 90 to 95, it's in that area when mine hatch. Now, way back when I bred geckos in 2018 and I lived at my parents' house, my mom always kept the house cold, so sometimes it would be 70 to 72 in the top of the closet where I had the eggs. And there was one I had that went over day 100, and I don't remember which one it was. I have it written down, obviously, but I'm not going to go digging for it. So, obviously, the longer they can incubate, the more produced and the more along they'll be. So, for instance, to make more sense of that, If you have a gecko that is in the egg for 95 days, let's say, it's going to have a nicer structure when it comes to its crest. If it's got any pinstriping, it's going to be a lot nicer, versus if you have a baby that comes out at day 60 to 70, it's not going to be as developed. It'll probably be on the thinner / smaller side. The crest won't be as nice because it came out early. It didn't have enough time to cook, we could say. So instead of letting it fully incubate, it's coming out early and it's not going to be as well produced as one that's staying in the egg longer. Now some people, you can't control, you know, what the temperature is. It's just going to be hot or it's going to be cold. Some people is like that, but at least in here I can kind of control the temperature with this guy. And of course I got some fans moving. But enough about that. I'll go ahead and get the old container out and I will show you what it used to be. You can still use it, like I said, but of course with me, where I'm going to be breeding more females, I needed more space, and also I like that this is divided and the babies cannot get about and mess with all the other eggs like I used to have that issue. Okay guys, so I'm back. So this is the old container that I used to use, and I was looking and I actually wonder if this is like a food container, because it says it's microwave safe as well as safe to put in the freezer. So that's kind of odd. Either way, I got this off of Wish, but you can probably get them off of Amazon. And they normally come with a little plastic tray and some rinky-dink thermometer that doesn't even have actual temperature numbers. It just says 1, 2, 3, 4 on there. Really wonky. I would always suggest just knowing the temperature of your room and not having an actual thermometer in there, because it's not going to be accurate. Not only that, having something that reads the humidity as well in there, like I said, it's just going to be overwhelmed. I actually had a thermometer and humidity probe break because I tried having one in there, and the constant humidity actually broke my humidity part of the probe. And the thermometer part didn't take much longer to break because I don't know if, I think the constant humidity was messing with the probe itself, but it's just a little tiny thing. If I had to guess, it's probably 6 or 7 inches wide by like 4 inches. So like 4 inches this way, 6 to 7 inches that way, whatever that would be. Anyway, this is what I used to use, and this is what I'm going to use to sit the eggs in while I'm cleaning that deal out. I will say real quick, the reason that I keep a towel on top of my eggs is most of the time you want them to be kept in a dark space where they're not really going to feel much vibration. They're not getting moved around a lot. The most realistic you can get to them obviously being in the dirt. So I keep that towel over the container so it keeps them nice and dark, because a long time ago, like I said, they used to be in the top of my closet. And I'm going to put my hand here so that that sound doesn't just go into my speaker, but they used to be in the top of the closet, and that was in a dark area. Well, obviously there's nowhere in here really that's dark except for that closet I store stuff in, and that's not a safe place for me to put them. So I just have a little towel that's on there, so if you guys have any that you're incubating and you can't have them in an area where there's no light, just put a somewhat thick wash rag there that's normally a dark color. Now with that one, it is a white rag, but it's pretty thick and it does keep out the light, so that's the only reason I use it. You could always just get a black wash rag like I have on some of these tanks over here, and you could just use that. But I will say too, you do not want to be taking the eggs and handling them really often. Like I said, I will open the container to make sure that it's not humid or anything, or it's not dried out, like not too humid and not too dry. If it is too dry, like I said, I will take those eggs out temporarily, spray and clean around, or not clean around, I'll spray and mix that water around in there. But you don't want to handle the eggs as much as possible. Don't hold them hardly any. Don't be candling them once you have looked and seen, okay, there is an embryo in there, just leave it alone. Because I was reading, and of course I've talked about this before, if you are candling it a lot, especially when the baby is starting to produce, it can squirm around in there because it's trying to get away from the light, and it can get all tangled up in its embryonic cords, or whatever you want to call them, the blood vessels even as well, and it actually can suffocate and kill itself, and it will die in the egg before it even has a chance to really produce. So once you get past like day 5, just don't put any lights under it. Like I used to check on them up to day like 10, and you can kind of see a little tiny bit of growth going on, but I was reading that the risks outweigh the pros. Yeah, it's cool to get to see them develop and everything, but don't mess with them unless you absolutely have to, because you want to give that egg the best chance it can to produce as most natural it can, being that it's just left alone and it's not moved around as much unless you absolutely have to. So I just wanted to stress that. really highly, because I'm sure anyone that's younger, or if you're a kid, yeah, you probably want to see what's going on, which I'd hope if you're a child that your parents are the ones breeding and not you. Because obviously as a child you can't go out and just buy stuff you need for that animal. Now obviously, if you have a parent that's awesome and they also like reptiles and have reptiles, then yeah, they'll go out and buy stuff that's needed for that animal. But if you're anything like with me, I waited till I was like 19 to get my first gecko because I had to have my own car, I had to have my own money. I couldn't just rely on my parents to go get stuff, because when I had fish in the past, I would have to literally wait till it was convenient for them to do anything with the fish. So I learned from that I did not want to get an animal that I had to take care of myself, solely dependent on me, until I had my own car and until I had my own job that I could pay for stuff myself and not be having to ask them to do it for me. Now obviously, some parents, like I said, are really good about buying supplies if they know your animal needs it, if you're stressing, hey, this is something I need. But otherwise, I would definitely suggest waiting till you're a teenager before you get any reptiles, as close to being, you know, getting your own car and your own job as you can get. I know that sometimes that's hard to wait, but like I said, I was 19 when I got Ember, and of course she is going to be 7 years old next year as well, because Magma, Blaze, and Ember all had birthdays in 2014, so they're going to be all 7 next year, even though Ember is the one I've had the longest. Anyway though, I'm not going to show on camera me getting these out and changing it. I just wanted to discuss temperatures of the eggs and not to handle them as often. And yes, this container works just fine. I will say the lid comes off pretty easy, so that's one thing I didn't really care about this container versus where that one's a latch, and it's less likely that it's going to get dried out in there versus this container that just the lid comes off super easy. So like I said, it works if you have to have like a beginner container. I will say though, this was more expensive than buying that tackle box at Walmart. I think that tackle box was probably $2 to $3 max, and it comes with little dividers so you can choose how big or how small you want those little pockets to be. And with me, I'm breeding small animals, so when it comes to geckos, I'm breeding a small breed, so they don't need to have a whole bunch of space. But if you're breeding a larger animal, like say leopard geckos, or if you're breeding like gargoyles, or if you've got Legionus geckos, or if you've got the, I'm going to forget now the other species, I can't think of it right now. I don't really see that other species as often as my group. The Chihuahua Gecko, there we go. Those ones I'm pretty sure are a lot larger than the Crested Geckos, so their eggs maybe when they hatch might require a little bit more space. Either way, it's nice because you can choose how much room you need to use width-wise, and where you can have just like a little pocket, or you can have this, or you can have the entire row open. It really don't matter. So anyway guys, I hope you found this educational, and I hope that it was informative for you. Like and subscribe if you'd like to support the channel. It always encourages me to make more videos. And it also is nice getting to know that some people might actually be learning and enjoying stuff that I'm teaching, I suppose you want to say. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to think of what I want to say in person, and then after I'm done and I'm editing, I'm like, oh, well, this would have been a way better way to word it. So you know how that works. It just happens. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a good rest of your day.